There's a lot to love about the watch industry, but that doesn't mean there isn't plenty to dislike too. These are the 10 things I hate about watches. Stay to the end for the absolute worst thing. Let's get the elephant in the room out of the way first. Watches are getting pretty expensive. Even at RRP, watches have climbed well above inflation and out of the reach of, well, me, and I hate that. I won't belabor the point, but a watch being a stretch now that was an easy buy 10 years ago really sucks. The next thing I hate is something that, to me at least, has become a bit of a cliche in the watch world. There it is. Watch world. Those two words in that order for some reason make me cringe so hard I could pop. It's not so much that I dislike the collective culture of people who enjoy watches, more that the use of that hideous word pairing only seems necessary because of either the A, most ridiculous parts of the industry, or B, the most tedious parts of the industry. I'll give you an example. When a new, impressive, conversation-worthy car story comes out, people say, "This new car changes everything because it's got a jet engine," or "Honda builds a new factory out of Lego bricks." It's not, "This new car changes the car world," or "Honda's new factory is the most impressive in the car world." Saying watch world implies that the news is otherwise stupid or tedious. The most important people in the watch world is a synonym for the most boring people you could ever meet. Interesting people are interesting people. "This watch changes the watch world" basically means this watch achieves nothing of note. It's a crutch for lazy creation and lazy journalism, and I hate it. There's that moment when you get a new watch or a new strap and you put it on for the first time and it doesn't fit. Whether metal, leather or fabric, whether links, holes or loops, you find yourself between settings and for some reason those settings seem further apart than both the centre and the edge of the universe. On the tighter setting, it's set to turn your hand blue in 30 seconds. On the looser, the whole thing's going to shoot off with just one aggressive point. The thing I hate most about this isn't that it happens, it's that I don't understand why it happens. How can two seemingly close points be so different? How can a strap that looks almost identical in layout to the one it replaced behave so differently? A greater mind than mine is needed to understand. In the meantime, I'll stick with what I can do. Resentment. I'm going to mention more about the whole size and shape of watches a little later on, but I've got to get this one out of the way first. Deep dials. Never has a watch ever looked good with a sunken dial. You know the ones I mean, with the deep old rehaut that looks like a missile silo, the poor old dial languishing at the bottom in the dark like a puddle of stale water. It's the domain of bad fakes when they haven't quite figured out how to get the hands close enough together to stop them rubbing, and even those guys have figured it out now, so no excuses. Actually, there's one excuse. If your watch can reach the bottom of the ocean, I'll allow it. And it can stay there. Right, this next one really gets my goat. You know how mechanical watches haven't been relevant tech for 50 plus years? How computers have resigned them to the "we won't get rid of them entirely because we like having them around" category? I don't think there's anyone that would ever dispute this fact. Wherever mechanical watches were once king in industry, they are now no longer. They're a fancy, a distraction, something we enjoy to keep us all from thinking too hard about the point of all this, and that's fine. In fact, it's admirable. We need stuff like that to stay happy and sane. So when a mechanical watch is posed with no irony at all in a situation it is no longer warranted for, it riles me up a bit. Testing a Navitimer in a private jet, a chronograph in a racing car, a dive watch deep down underwater. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you can't do those things with them, and I'm certainly not saying you can't enjoy them for those purposes. Quite the opposite. A more analog approach to enjoying our hobbies is increasingly more rewarding. What I'm saying is that these watches shouldn't be pitched as a serious contender for front-running performance in those categories. Listen to a vinyl record for sure, but don't tell me it's the best tech for storing accurate audio data. On that note, I'm going to chuck in a sidebar on the word innovation. To me, innovation is flying a helicopter on Mars, making a battery charge 4 times faster, or making it so mowing the lawn isn't a complete pain in the butt anymore. What it isn't is incremental performance increases in an outdated technology that would have been of little note even if it wasn't outdated. It's not combining two already boring functions together to create a new complication. It's certainly not using a random material just because someone in a marketing department somewhere realised no one had ever used it before, and usually because there was no reason to use it. Can an old technology like mechanical watchmaking be innovative? Of course it can, using new manufacturing techniques to provide meaningful benefit like value or anti-magnetism is a great innovation. Exploring crazy ideas just to see if they can be done is also fantastic. Renaming titanium and selling it to me as special can take a flying jump. In fact, if you ever see the word innovation alongside Watch World, you know it's baloney. I'm going to caveat this next peeve by saying, look, I get it. Sometimes watches either have a long, stupid name or just a model number that's just no fun to say or, more to the point, easy to remember. Nevertheless, can we cool it with the nicknames? To further caveat this, I also don't have a problem with watches being given a meaningful nickname like the Snowflake. It feels reverent, appropriate. Kermit or Hulk, however, I mean, come on. What are we going to do next? Bunk class and throw balled up tissue at the girls? I think more than anything, it's the rush to commit a nickname to a new watch that has me cringing like the chief cringer at the Cringe Factory on Bring Your Cringe to Work Day. As if we didn't look like nerds enough getting together to talk about watches. You guys want us to get beaten up or what? This next hate is going to be levelled at basically 90% of the industry, so here goes. Why do you make so many different types of watches? Worse still, why do you make so many that look almost entirely the same? Should I pick the 39mm version with the 6 o'clock sub-seconds or the 38.5mm version with the 9 o'clock sub-seconds? And then, why do you take all those watches and put them in one big unfathomable pile on your website? By the time I'm done scrolling through this disarray, I'm less thinking about buying a watch and more hoping I never have to look at one ever again. I guess it's a confidence thing. It can be tough to know what watches are going to work and what aren't. I can tell you though that the solution isn't to make all the watches. One of the worst hates I have with watches is one that really seems almost pedantic. Some people might not even notice. I'm talking about proportions, the size and shape of watches and how it all comes together. I'm not even hating on really thick or big watches specifically because those are often obviously wrong or more likely just not aimed at me. I'm talking about watches that look superb, almost. If only they'd got that one little detail right. Whether it's an awkwardly broad bezel or cross-eyed subdials, nothing makes palm meat face harder for me than a watch this close to perfection. It's like, why? Why couldn't they see it? Why would they leave it like that? Did they do it just to upset me? This happens all the time, and I'm sure you could attribute it to taste, but more often than not the complaints are universal. And I get that sometimes budget and pre-existing components can force decisions to be made that are suboptimal, but when you see more affordable watchmakers getting along just fine with proportions, it makes you wonder if the ones that get it wrong are just doing it on purpose so as not to undermine the better looking, more expensive watches higher up in the group. It makes me very happy to see people enjoying their collections. Whether one watch or many, cheap or expensive, seeing someone enthuse about something they've assembled is a very pleasant experience. You know what? I don't even really mind the why either. If the watches are all fashion watches and the collector likes the way they look and it makes them happy, golden. If they're pleased with how much their collection of identical watches has gone up in value and that makes them happy too, also golden. What absolutely sears my sausage more than anything else, however, is when collectors of rare, expensive but otherwise bland watches are treated with reverence, designated as a renowned collector. They're put on a pedestal because the watches they can afford are worth more than the ones most people can, as though spending money on expensive watches is a skill somehow. Remember, I'm not knocking the collectors, I'm aggressively pointing my finger. Strap fits well, don't worry, at those fawning over them for it. It's one thing to appreciate another person's taste and foresight, but don't clap the rich kid for spending his money. It's weird. Those are my hates. Do you agree with them or not? What are your personal watch hates? Let me know in the comments below. Please do like and subscribe too, and if you want to see more of me, make sure to check me out over on the Watchfinder channel. Thanks, and see you next time.